you are going to collapse the delicate security apparatus that we've cultivated in our apartheid state. They're saying that not because they want to end the apartheid state. They're saying that because they want to maintain the apartheid state with a decent amount of security. Than any other opposition. Yeah, okay, bro. Okay. Sure. Yeah, this is the classic unconditional Ummah supporter in the chat being like, you don't understand. This man is the real caliphate, okay? This man is restoring glory to the Ummah. I promise. You're a fucking idiot, dude. Erdogan sucks the penis of Israel harder than any other fucking regional leader. He sucks Benjamin Netanyahu so hard, he makes Mohammed bin Salman blush, okay? And you're over here being like, oh, he is the glorious protector of all Sunnis in the land. Yeah, suck my dick, okay? You don't know anything. Shut up. There are so many like Pakistani dudes out there that just think that he is this incredible defender of the Islam around the world, you know? Especially with like the Syria shit, I think they really like him now. Anyway, Somalis think that too. Yeah, that makes sense. Turkey has a really good relationship with Somalia, so it's just like what is the problem? It looks like Turkey's getting some USA freedom. Turkey maintains American nukes in American bases inside of Turkey. Turkey has never had a moment where it didn't have that USA-style freedom. Turkey is a NATO country. It's the second largest standing military in NATO. That's the reason why Erdogan gets to do whatever the fuck he wants. Okay? And, yeah, no, you're ridiculous if you think that, like, if you think that Turkey has never had a moment where it was free of USA-style freedom.
Only the beginning.
Anyway, abi ses kısmı açmak için kullandığın eklentiyi söyler misin? Biraz konu dışı ama kusura bakma. That's so funny. Turkish chatter in the chat going, what's the volume thing that you use? It's called Volume Master. How about you worry about the fucking lira and the fact that you're the fact that the regime that you exist under is crippling the last bastion of like any sort of democratic resistance. This motherfucker's out here being like, what is the volume master that you use? What is the volume extension that you use, bro? Your country is on fire, okay? Calm down about the extension. Kızma amına koyayım. Yok, kızmıyorum. Anyway.
Of Israel's.
Now let's move on to another incredibly democratic country. Of course, the most democratic country of all time. The most moral democracy of all time, Israel.
Renewed offensive, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But for Palestinians in Gaza, it's the return to a nightmare. Digging through rubble to recover bodies, ferrying the dead and wounded to already depleted hospitals. Prayers.
Yeah, here's Israel's new defense minister. After the former one had some back and forth, some friction with Netanyahu, even though the former one is currently has an active arrest warrant for being a war criminal, Yoav Gallant. The new one is Defense Minister Katz. And just like the previous one, he came out and said he's going to actively target civilians, which again is a war crime. But also, what the fuck are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Who's going to say, hey, can you not do war crimes, please? You can't. There's no one that will be like, hey, this sounds a lot like you're doing a genocide. I don't think that is appropriate. Please, can you stop doing a genocide, you know? Another good guy, if you will. Here, let's hear what he has to say. Okay, it's in Hebrew. Residents of Gaza, This is your final warning. The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza, and the second Sinwar will bring upon it total ruin. The Israeli Air Force's attacks against Hamas terrorists was only the first step. What follows will be far harsher, and you will bear the full cost. Evacuation of the population from combat zones will soon resume. If all Israeli hostages are not released and Hamas is not kicked out of Gaza, Israel will act with force you have not known before. Take the advice of the U.S. president. Return the hostages and kick out Hamas, and new options will be open for you, including relocation to other parts of the world for those who choose. The alternative is destruction and total devastation. This basically is the final solution. He's saying it's the final solution time. If we actually don't ethnically displace you, then we're just going to ethnically cleanse you from the land. That is what he is saying. This is the defense minister, for the record, of the most moral army and the most moral military of the most moral democracy on the planet, Israel. Very not so subtle words here.
And mourning.
I lost my whole family. I got married recently in 2023. God honored me with Muhammad, who was so beautiful, and my wife was pregnant. She was martyred while she was pregnant. My son was martyred too.
For the second night in a row, Israel struck several targets across the Gaza Strip, including this makeshift camp in Han Yunis.
I want to tell Benjamin Netanyahu that it is not manly to attack civilians in their tents. Manly is to find the soldiers in the fields.
Israel Defense Forces say they are targeting Hamas command centers, and in the last 24 hours have issued evacuation.
This is the piece of shit Arab spokesperson for the Israeli occupying force. God, I know all these fucking villains now. It shouldn't happen, but yeah, all the while, the IDF have began targeted ground activities in central and southern Gaza over the past day in order to expand the security zone and to create a partial buffer between northern and southern Gaza. As part of the ground activities, the troops expanded their control further to the center of the Netzarim corridor. Netzarim is the one that crosses across the Gaza Strip, separates the south and the north. Simultaneously, it is decided that the Golani Brigade would be stationed in the southern command area and remain ready for operations in Gaza. The IDF will continue to operate against terrorist organizations in Gaza to protect the civilians, to protect the citizens in the state of Israel. Oh, God. Oh, no. That's the scariest thing you can ever hear from an Israeli is we have security concerns. That means ethnic cleansing is back on the menu. Whenever an official Israeli politician says we have security concerns, know that bombs are about to drop. Know that genocide is back on.
Orders affecting nearly 100,000 Palestinians, raising concerns of another ground operation. While in Israel, resentment towards the government is pouring into the streets. Thousands marched towards the Knesset on Wednesday.
It's not lost on me, once again, that the opposition to the Benjamin Netanyahu government is still waving the flags of Israel. This is important to understand. Think about the opposition in the United States of America, okay? Think about the opposition to the Trump administration in the U.S. Think about the opposition to previous administrations in the U.S. Who is the one that raises American banners and American flags? What is their attitude? I'm trying to get you Americans and those in the Western world to understand that this right here implies that they're not totally against Benjamin Netanyahu's actions. They're just against Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay?
Accusing Netanyahu of resuming the war for political gains. It is the second day of protests, with many worrying he is further endangering the 24 hostages still believed alive, and outraged by his attempts to fire the head of Israel's internal security service, the Shin Bet.
We want to be a democracy, and we are
Crime Minister. Okay, that's a fire hoodie.
on the way to dictatorship.
And the hostages are still in the tunnels, and we want them home now.
Public opinion polls in Israel show support.
I just feel like the media is saying that Hamas didn't want to negotiate. I feel like we're being gaslit about the ceasefire deal. As you said, there was a phase 2 and 3. Why did Israel break? Why are people okay with that? Yeah, no, it's a lie. When Israel says Hamas is not negotiating with us, they're lying. That's just an abject lie. Think about it this way. Israel violated the ceasefire even on phase 1 with no intention of ever moving to phase 2 or 3, right? And even then, there was no retaliation from Hamas in that process. No retaliation whatsoever. And then they just basically decided it's over. It's completely over. We're just going to go back to full-blown ethnic cleansing and immediately killed hundreds of Palestinians, 180 children that they slaughtered overnight. It's been the same exact lie that they've retold over and over again with no with no pushback from Western leadership against these lies. As a matter of fact, the Biden administration actively supported this lie. They lied at the behest of Israel over and over again. They actually overextended their lies so much that Benjamin Netanyahu, fearing political backlash from his coalition of even more further right neo-Nazis, decided to actively undermine the Biden administration. Whenever Anthony Blinken would be like, no, this is Israel's deal, Bibi would come out and be like, it's not. I hate this deal. I don't want to do this deal at all.
For a second stage of the ceasefire, but Netanyahu has all but ruled out a return to peace, saying on Tuesday that future negotiations with Hamas will take place only under fire.
Breaking news, a judge rules to move.
So, yeah, there was some drama with Netanyahu personally for firing the leader of the Shin Bet. Shin Bet is the interior security. It's like the FBI, basically, like the National Security Intelligence Agency of Israel. And Mossad is CIA, Shin Bet is like FBI. Okay, it's reductive, but that's kind of what it is. And after he did that, because of a back and forth over, I believe it was over October 7 as well as some other reasons, the government called him. The government wanted to conduct an inquiry into why he had unceremoniously fired the head of the Shin Bet. And Benjamin Netanyahu started dropping bombs that night. And of course, the inquiry was canceled. Is this the woke one? There is no woke one. There is no woke group in Israel. Like, that's why most of the opposition is still, very on board with continuing bombing, but they just want the hostages back. Or they don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't have an issue with, like, if you want to understand the opposition in Israel, look at like Yair Lapid. Look at the quote unquote centrists in positions of power and the way that and the way that they operate. Like when the ICC came down on Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, they literally called the ICC anti-Semitic. Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, considers it woke leftist and a deep state agenda. Here it is. Shin Bet and police investigating for weeks allegations that some of Netanyahu's aides were on the Qatari payroll. This evening, 2 suspects arrested over contact with foreign agent plus money laundering. This is Netanyahu's reaction. In America and in Israel, when a strong right-wing leader wins an election, the leftist deep state weaponizes the justice system to thwart the people's will. They won't win in either place. We stand strong together. He's like, they're coming after me, but they want to come after you. I'm just in the way. He's doing the Donald Trump line. But, yeah. It's not that different. They're generally less corrupt than Bibi. It's time for a change of leadership in Israel. Yeah, they're process libs in the same way that our liberals are here as well. So, yeah, like I'll explain it to you like this. Liberal Zionists in Israel, or even like the Shin Bet, right? They have valid security concerns that they recognize. So they'll oftentimes come to Benjamin Netanyahu and say, hey, can you stop working alongside Itamar Ben-Gvir in really doing these pogroms in the West Bank? Because every time you do a pogrom in the West Bank, you're moving military resources away from the Gaza envelope and moving it into the West Bank. And also you're pissing off the Palestinians. And when you piss off the Palestinians, Hamas is getting angrier and angrier and sees just cause for retaliation. You are going to collapse the delicate security apparatus that we've cultivated in our apartheid state. They're saying that not because they want to end the apartheid state. They're saying that because they want to maintain the apartheid state with a decent amount of security. Some liberal Zionists will look to the West Bank and the pogroms and say, that's gross. Why do they say that? Well, because they understand that in the Western world, that plays really poorly. Because that's the type of clan-style activity that like even Westerners can understand. Okay? But overall, nobody fully, like with the exception of a very small group of people, like dedicated anti-Zionists, almost all of them I've had on this fucking broadcast, there's no real genuine anti-Zionist movement, especially amongst Israeli Jews. And the Palestinian citizens of Israel, which comprise 25% of the Israeli population. By the way, when I say Israeli Jews, that's not my interpretation. It is the demographic association that Israel has designed because it's a Jewish ethno-state, a Jewish religious supremacist ethno-state. So it's their own designation that I'm using in this circumstance. There are plenty of Arab Jews as well in Israel. They're just not considered Arab. Arab is considered second-class citizen. So, yes, there are Marxists. I know personally. No, I know. But they're a small, incredibly small number of people, and most of them are in here. That's what I'm talking about. So most of the opposition against the Netanyahu administration in Israel is, of course, still very much in support of a lot of the violence and the cruelty that the Israeli government subjects Palestinians to. They just want to not erode their civil liberties. Like, you know, they want to be gay. They want to be a gay apartheid state. They don't want to be an anti-apartheid state. And they don't want to abolish the apartheid. They just want to still be gay. So, that's a somewhat reductive way to explain the process here. So, I have long maintained the position that if you want to stop the insane reactionary support, you have to address and tackle and dismantle the apartheid, because the apartheid justifies the existence of the Jewish Power Party and many other more reactionary forces in Israeli politics. And because the overwhelming majority of liberal Zionists in Israel don't want to reckon with that issue, they just kind of put their hands up in the air and go, how the fuck did we get here? I don't understand. Well, that's how you got here. A interesting analog to what we have experienced with the Democratic Party's lackluster opposition to the Republicans undermining the administrative apparatus, undermining the administrative state, and doing a metric ton of awful fascist things here in the United States of America, which the Democrats are not doing a good job tackling or criticizing, partially because there are a lot of Democrats that just want stability, no matter what the cost is. And also on top of that, there's a lot of Democrats that like the things that the Trump administration is doing. They're just too cowardly to openly state that they like the things that the Trump administration is doing. But it's great that they can maintain moral high ground while simultaneously, doing like the most cowardly, feckless little I don't like what you're doing style opposition towards the Republicans. So, yeah, they care about prices stabilizing. All right. Speaking of America and the Burger Reich undermining American democracy, once again, Mahmoud Khalil's case should be moved to New Jersey. The judge rules. Okay, let's take a look.
Mahmoud Khalil's case to New Jersey. He is a Columbia University graduate detained by the government over his participation in pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Alice Gaynor covers courts and is here now with more details.
Cindy, the government wanted the case to play out in Louisiana. Mahmoud Khalil wanted it in New York. Simply put, the federal judge in the Southern District of New York said Khalil filed his petition in the wrong district through no fault of his own. Khalil's attorney, the judge noted, was relying on information made available by the government at the time about his location.
You're going to be under arrest. So turn around.
On March 8th, ICE took Mahmoud Khalil into custody at Columbia University campus housing and brought him to a New York field office. He was eventually transported to a detention facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey, then flown to Louisiana. A federal judge in the Southern District of New York ruled that because Khalil's attorney filed a petition on his behalf at 4:40 a.m. while detained in New Jersey, a straightforward application of the District of Confinement and Immediate Custodian rules therefore dictates that Khalil's petition should have been filed in the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey, not in this court. Khalil's petition questions the detention of the green card holder who is married to an American citizen. The judge noted in the order, many of the facts in this case are hotly contested. Khalil's petition, the judge says, depicts him as an outspoken but peaceful leader of student protests held at Columbia University against Israel's actions in Gaza since the atrocities of October 7, 2023, and that the government, by contrast, describes Khalil as leading activities aligned to Hamas, siding with terrorists, and a threat to the foreign policy and national interests of the United States. On Face the Nation Sunday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked repeatedly if there was any evidence of a link to terrorism.
I'm asking about the specific justification for the revocation of his visa. Was there any evidence or material support for terrorism?
Was the negotiator negotiating on behalf of people that took over a campus, that vandalized buildings? Negotiating over what?
A French researcher was detained on arrival in the U.S., his computer and phone confiscated and searched, and his text criticizing Trump cuts to scientific research were deemed by DHS agents as a hatred of Trump that could be described as terrorism. He was deported the next day. According to a diplomatic source to the AFP, the incident occurred on March 9th. The space researcher was reportedly subject to a random check upon arrival, during which his work computer and personal phones were searched. The same source also reported that messages discussing the Trump administration's treatment of scientists were found. He was reportedly accused of messages that reflect hatred toward Trump and can be described as terrorism. His professional and personal equipment was reportedly confiscated, and the researcher was sent back to Europe the next day. According to another source briefed on the case to AFP, the French researcher was accused by the American authorities of hateful and conspiratorial messages. He was reportedly informed of an FBI investigation for which charges were dropped, the source continued. I'm telling you right now, it's already happening, and I've been saying that. It's being mean to Trump is terrorism, okay? But hey, guess what, dude? There's a high bar, right? To let people into this country. If you have mean thoughts about Trump, good luck. You can't come into the country. Based. I don't want someone who doesn't like my glorious leader to be in the country. Based. You're a non-citizen. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. That's what I say. Yeah. Well. If you don't like the president, then you can't come into the country. That's right. Based. I love free speech, by the way. Except unless it's non-citizens who think mean thoughts about Trump, then I don't like free speech. Yeah. Fuck around and find out. How dare you? How dare you think mean thoughts about my glorious president? I'm a centrist. Apoliticals, rise up. Just common sense. Yeah. Just doing my common sense. Yeah. We have enough troublemakers in the country. That's terrorism. Why? I've decided it was. It's the case. It's the case. It's good stuff. If you don't like it, just change the law. Oh my God. Oh my God. Should have taken a fucking big ass gulp out of my Dr. Pepper, extra large Dr. Pepper in between.
That's a crime in and of itself, that they're involved in being the negotiator, the spokesperson, this, that, the other. We don't want it. We don't need these people in our country.
In a letter dictated by phone from the detention facility in Louisiana, Khalil described himself as a political prisoner, that the Trump administration is targeting me as part of a broader strategy to suppress dissent.
Here's the article in French. United States, French researcher expelled by Le Monde. French researcher expelled for expressing a personal opinion on the policies pursued by the Trump administration. This is the article. Le Monde. Le Monde. Wait. Yeah. Why don't you speak American?
So it will be up to the court in New Jersey to consider Khalil's motions, like the motion to transfer him from Louisiana to a detention facility in this district and a motion for release on bail, Cindy.